Hello my friends and welcome back to the channel. I haven't planned this video really today, but I wanted to talk about it and have wanted to talk about it for quite a long time. And as you can see from the title of the video, it's Opiate Addiction Stole My Life. And I'm actually making the video today for two reasons. Well, three probably. The first is to remind myself of a horror and a nightmare that I never want to return to. Another reason is as a message of hope for all of you out there that are struggling, that there is a way out, that there is life to be found after addiction, if you like, and that you have got a future. That as long as you never give up and you keep trying, that one day the miracle will happen and can happen. And the other reason is, again, as for those of you who are in addiction still to opiates, with opiates, or probably any substance really it applies to, that just how quickly, even if you think you're okay at the moment and that you're managing the situation, as I often thought was the case, that it will come back and bite you and take everything from you at such a rapid rate that one day you'll appear to have everything, and then in a blink of an eye, you'll have lost everything. I used substances, predominantly alcohol, right up until my 40s, I suppose, like most of us, to deal with pain, past pain, predominantly to change the way I felt about myself, the way I felt about certain situations, because of fear, because of lack of self-worth. There were countless reasons, but a constant feeling of never having or being enough, if you like, a big hole, a gaping hole inside of me that constantly wanted to be filled. By the time I'd reached my 40s, looking in from the outside, I had everything. I did have everything that anyone could want, really. You know, I had a very successful career, businesses which were making a lot of money. I had all the material things that anyone could want, I suppose. You know, like the flash car, the flash jewelry, you know, the house, great salary, money in the bank, you know, you name it. Very successful businesses, like I say, well respected in the area I lived in because of that. And most importantly of all, I had beautiful, and still have actually, but beautiful and loving wife and two beautiful daughters. You know, on the face of it, everything that a man could want. And yet inside, I remember entering my early 40s and thinking, what's next? You know, this is not enough. And all those same feelings as I had when I was a child, I was still medicating, mostly, as I say, with alcohol in those days, because I hadn't discovered opiates at all. You know, I'd perhaps had opiates when I'd had operations in the past in hospital, but nothing had clicked inside of me as such. You know, I'd used other drugs. I had a period in my 20s on cocaine where that was my drug of choice. But it was always alcohol, if you like, and it was always the abuse of alcohol which removed me from my feelings, if you like, and numbed me and filled that void temporarily. But things were always 1,000 times worse once I'd sobered up, and there were always negative consequences. You know, I'd hurt someone, you know, usually been very cruel, horrible and terrible behaviour, blackouts, you name it. It was all going on with alcohol at that time. And then into my 40s, I went for a bad back to a doctor and was prescribed strong opiates. And I'll always remember that feeling. You know, it was like coming home, if you like. It's a very strange thing to talk about now because, you know, I tried to recreate that first feeling for years after that, as most people do with opiate addiction. I felt as though I was wrapped in cotton wool. Every fear, every bad feeling, you know, all of that lack of self-worth and all of that pain just evaporated, and I was just sort of wrapped up in this warm hug, fuzz of opiates. And that was just taking a normal dose of these strong opiates. Obviously, my addict brain then began, because you can never, as you know, if you're addicted to opiates or have been addicted to, well, any substance, you can never recreate. You spend every waking moment, if you like, trying to recreate that first feeling. But you can never truly recreate that. And obviously, as your tolerance goes up, you increase your quantities. And that's where this nightmare journey began. And before I tell you about it very quickly, I want to make a very quick appeal. 2 things. 75% of you that watch these videos never subscribe. Please, if you do subscribe, it just means that perhaps 1 or 2 more people will get to see them. And hopefully, get some help from them. And if you or your family members or anybody that you know has had any help at all from my videos over the past 6 years, please take a moment, just click the link in the description, have a read. I really am struggling to continue with this now. Really need your help to do so. If you can help in any way, and it'll tell you how to do that on there, please do that. And thank you to those of you who've done that already. I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. So yeah, I started to take these pills and immediately began to abuse them. And so the downhill descent started, if you like. It started fairly slowly, and it began with me manipulating the doctor, which was a bit easier in those days, in the 90s, to get extra repeat prescriptions, saying that my back was worse, then lying about the pain in my back, and getting increased doses, and then eventually changing to much higher grade medication like morphine sulfate tablets, fentanyl patches. There wasn't a massive fear around fentanyl. You could get patches in those days. All of this sort of stuff going on and abusing them. The drinking had gone more or less, and I was functioning, or thinking I was functioning, on these strong medication. And to a certain extent I was still doing my job. We were still being very successful. I was still, and I hadn't really noticed, my family hadn't noticed so much in those days, because the effects are difficult, unless you're looking for the effects, and, the pinned eyes. And if you take too much, obviously, you're slurring and you're falling asleep and nodding out and all of this sort of stuff. I was trying to keep it at a level where I was hiding my pain and hiding from my pain, if you like, staying numb to a certain extent to that restless, irritable and discontent feeling, manipulating the pills to do that. So it was more difficult to spot. But then as it increased and increased and increased, people began to notice. And then, of course, the doctor noticed and stopped, weaned me off, sent me to a pain specialist clinic, who did investigation on my back, a proper one, and found that there was nothing really wrong with it. I then started to be very desperate, really desperate, because by this time I was addicted. And that feeling of addiction to opiates, waking up with not enough in your system, is terror, true nightmare terror. Because the opiate withdrawal starts to set in within a few hours. The feeling of doom that comes over you, the fear and the anxiety, if you haven't got anything to hand to take away that, is immense. And that controlled my life for years after that. And I was, first of all, buying Nurofen Plus tablets. In England, they're strongest you can buy over the counter. With extra codeine in. Again, very addictive, very expensive. And I was buying 3 packets, and my tolerance had gone to such a level, the dose I was taking of those would probably kill someone if they took that for the first time. My tolerance had built up and built up and built up. I was driving around chemists, getting refused at certain chemists. My day started with me having to make excuses to drive round chemists in the area, 10-mile radius, who'd served me these pills because people were getting wise to it. You know, in my suit, the so-called respected member of the business community, driving around in my suit. And then, of course, the money, because it was costing me, you know, early days, this was 35, 40 pounds a day, which you can't hide that in a week. That's nearly 300 pounds a week. And that's, you know, you can't start hiding that. So I started stealing from our savings. I started to pawn jewellery. And then, when I was getting really desperate, I discovered that someone in the pub knew someone who could procure heroin for me to smoke. And that was the beginning of the end, really. You know, it snowballed on and snowballed on and snowballed on. Finally, you know, it affected my job and my family, everything. You know, I tell the story, and if you look back in my story on this channel, I can tell that in more detail. Suffice to say that it ended up with me living in a small, you know, I lost my job. They couldn't tolerate it anymore, chance after chance after chance. I had to separate from my family because I'd stolen from my children, I'd stolen from my grandmother, I'd stolen from my wife, from everything. I'd pawned all the jewellery that was so valuable sentimentally to me. You know, I can't begin to tell you some of those pieces of jewellery. And I got an absolute pittance for them, enough to get me through a day with heroin. And then I discovered from there, it went on because I came to live in Spain, and it was tramadol addiction, which I document on this channel as well. It was synthetic opiate, and I could buy them over the counter over here. I'll tell you how much my life deteriorated, just to give you an idea. And those of you who are in opiate addiction, this was in a space of probably 6 or 7 years, from having everything, absolutely everything, as I described, to not even washing or shaving or cleaning anything. I'd look in my fridge when I lived over here, first of all, which is now full of fresh, healthy food, incidentally. There was nothing at all in the fridge. Every penny that I scraped, because by this time I'd got my company pension. You know, every penny went on opiates. No food going inside of me. I stank. All I cared about was when the money ran out, I would borrow money left, right and centre from people, trying to steal it, trying to manipulate people, lying, cheating. My life disintegrated into a living hell. And the occasions that, you know, I'd be down this very deep, dark hole on my own, isolated, trying to get enough pills for a day just to get me through a day, and a night, obviously. You know, to beg, steal and borrow to do that. My health disintegrated. I was like a tramp. I wouldn't go out of my room. I just stayed in because I didn't have enough energy to move about. I was grossly overweight because any food that I did eat, you know, it was just junk. Just large bags of crisps and stuff into cheap, horrible stuff that I could just get cheaply just to satisfy a little urge. And then I was using alcohol when the pills were sort of wearing off, and I knew I didn't have enough money. I was buying cheap alcohol from Aldi, you know, like little things of wine for €1 and swigging them, and, you know, not having enough energy to get back up the road, having to swig it, vomit on the floor to get enough, and then drink it again to get enough down. It was a living nightmare. People were looking at me with pity, and I was still trying to hide this from my family because they were all in England, still lying to them, still trying to find a window in the day to speak to them on the phone when I was compos mentis, if you like, and not slurring, but they knew what was going on. And opiates stole my life in a matter of 8 or 9 years. They stole everything from me. And then they came back for me, my health and my mental health, and sitting in this dark room every day, you know, contemplating whether to kill myself or not. And waking up every morning, or, you know, when I did nod off, it would be waking up to terror. Money, pills would be the absolute first thing. I'd usually be in a start of withdrawal. And it went on and on and on and on and on for about a year. until I found, and I document this on the channel, found a way out. And I look back at that person today, and it's a long time since I took opiates. There's been 1 or 2 small relapses on alcohol, which I've documented on here as well, but not for quite a long time now. And I've found this this health and peace and serenity that I've been searching for all my life. I'm not going to go into all the ways I've found to do that, because they're all documented on here. Look back at the other videos. But there is a way out. It doesn't matter how far and how dark the hole is that you're in, and of course it's painful. Of course it's hard. Of course, the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life, you have to be a warrior. It has to be a battle from day one. No one wants to go into opiate withdrawal, and there is help from medical help from a doctor. You can, if you don't want to do that on your own, you can detox, and there is a medication, and there is a Suboxone route, which I document on here as well, because there was a period of time I was on that, trying to come off them, and that's a very good maintenance drug while you get your life back in order. And then you can cope with things a bit better when you wean yourself slowly off that. That's a route out. There are routes out, but it will take guts and determination, mental and physical strength. Most importantly, though, it'll take help and support. You have to ask for help. And there is help out there. Don't make excuses to yourself and say there isn't. If you search hard enough, you'll find it. Whatever the group is, whatever the organisation is, and whether it's medical help or not, there is a way out. You can do this. Never give up. It's never too late to have a great life again. I'm happier than I've ever been in my life at this moment. I'm 64 years old. Healthier, stronger, fitter. There is a way out. There's no point in saying, I'll never find my way out. It's not worth it. What's the point? Well, the point is that you've been gifted this life here, and it's very short, and people love you and care for you. And if not, care for yourself and give yourself a chance to live life. Thank you for listening, my friends. Please click the link in the description. Please subscribe. Carpe diem. Seize the day today. Make today the day you change your life. Much love to you all. Bye-bye.